Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome, man. I am excited about tonight's show. We're on fire right now. We're having a good time. I've got a great guest today. My guest today is named Brian Morris, and this guy is absolutely a fantastic author. He's an entrepreneur. He's a freaking genius. I've known this guy for a long time, and I promise you right now, this is going to be a really entertaining and fun show tonight, okay? So, Brian, would you like to say hi?
I wish I had that Midas touch you're speaking of. But,
Yeah, well, you're pretty modest. That's the whole issue there. But bottom line is, man, I know you've had a really, really awesome career. You've done a lot of stuff. You've been a graphic artist. You've been in law enforcement. You've been in the corporate world before. You have done podcast shows. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And currently, you're an author, and you're a good author. And so I want you to tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
about the book or
About you.
about me?
Yeah.
So I'm a Navy brat. I was raised in the world of the Navy. My dad was a retired naval commander way back when, and so we settled in Alabama after he after he retired. He retired a week after I graduated from high school, and he was from Alabama, which is why we all had to live there, right? So we were there for 30 years, thereabouts. And I've had quite an interesting career. So in '83 is when I was an engineering intern, and it was Patel Engineers in Huntsville, Alabama. And it was nuclear power related because Dad was Navy and nuclear submarines. And I was working with his company, the company he worked for at the time, as an intern. And then I was going to school full time at the same time then. I dropped out of college, went to the Portfolio Center in Atlanta to learn how to be a commercial photographer. So that was like a trade school for commercial photographers, graphic designers, and copyright people, copywriters. I did that, and then after that became a police officer. There's a whole story there we won't get into, but I became a police officer in Huntsville, Alabama. I did that for 8 years, 5 full-time, 3 as a reserve. And while I was working third shift for Huntsville Police Department, I finished my degree at the University of Alabama in Huntsville and went back into nuclear engineering after that. Now, my degree is not nuclear engineering. My degree is biophysical chemistry, or chemistry with an emphasis on biophysical chemistry. Let me say that because I can just see all the little nitpickers out there going,
Right.
There's no biophysical chemistry degree at UAH. I'm like, oh, come on, whatever. So anyway.
And you told me about law enforcement. That always fascinates me, man, because I don't think I have the balls to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things that really takes some guts. In my opinion.
So I attribute that to my interest in Adam 12 and Dragnet and Hill Street Blues and all those shows growing up, and I just love the idea of making a difference in that way, right? And contrary to what the anti-police crowd might tell you, police officers don't get into the business for the need to be mean or whatever. They genuinely, 99.99999% of them get into it because they genuinely want to help people. I mean, I know I did.
Good for the neighborhood.
Right, yeah. So I enjoyed being a police officer.
Yeah,
I would still be doing it had it not been for family pressure to get out.
Right.
So.
Well, tell me a little bit. What I'd like to know a little bit about is how did you become an author? Because you're on your second book now. And I'd like to know what in your head just said, I'm going to write a book.
Right. Yeah. So, first off, the book, Crossing the Guideline, which I have here, I'm trying to get it in camera here. The Crossing the Guideline is the second book. It is the first book that I actually started to draft and think about back in like 1996, 97 timeframe. Mm-hmm. And it's taken me that long. The first like real outline that I put together for it was in 2007. And I've been thinking about that for a long time. How do I would go back to my notes and add this section or this paragraph, talk about whatever the case is. And this is the first book that I've written that didn't fall out of like tragedy, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. So the first book that I have, real book, is the How to Wipe Your Dad's Ass and other things that his doctor won't tell you about Alzheimer's. Right. So my dad had Alzheimer's and I had to take care of him. And it was 24/7 care. And when we went to his neurologist, I just asked him one day, hey man, what do we expect? What do we have to deal with? What's coming our way that we don't see? What do we have to do to prepare for the worst? And I'll never forget his response. And I quote that in the book too. He said, I never really know what to tell the caregiver of a dementia patient. You're just going to have to do the best you can. Mm-hmm. And I left that doctor's appointment pissed off. I was really angry that he didn't have a better response than that. Mm-hmm. Because in my mind, right, he should have something that he could hand to a patient or a caregiver and say, this is what's coming your way. Mm-hmm. You need to be prepared for it.
So it's really a guide, not to interrupt you, but it's really a guide to somebody who's taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's.
It's exactly
it just boils down to that.
It's a how-to guide on taking care of a dementia patient.
Yeah. And the title itself is, again, and I've said this to you before, I've said to you many times before, that the covers of your books tend to really, they're almost shocking, and they make you look at the title. That's what's happened, at least with me, Right. Every time I see one of your books, I basically see something that makes me want to read the title.
Right.
And then I'm like, what is this book about? And I've got to, and unfortunately, I did read some of your first book. I have not had a chance to read the second one. As a matter of fact, you just got copies today, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, I'll sign this one and leave it for you.
Yeah. Oh, well, that would be fantastic. So the new book that we're here to promote today, especially, is this book.
Crossing the God Line.
Yeah. Yes. And tell us a little bit about that, because it sounds so interesting to me, man.
Right. Thank you. Like I said, I started mentally preparing myself for this book back in the late 90s. And it was a couple of years after I had become a Christian. And and let me speak about that for a moment. Mm-hmm. And I described this in the prologue to the book as well. I was an atheist, and I mean a hardcore, no God, that's all BS atheist. And the reason I studied chemistry and physics and biophysical chemistry was because in my mind, everything in the universe can be reduced to those things, right? And in my mind, I was going to learn what it took to argue with a Christian and say, you're wrong and here's why. Okay? And I was adamant about it. But then I got, as I went through college, I ended up in a Biology 544, which was a cellular development class. And we're studying the development of a human fetus. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm looking metaphorically, right, through the microscope, and I'm seeing these atoms and molecules line up and start doing these really funny things. And I said, wait a minute. The carbon that's in, this paper, that's in the little plastic here, that's in your cell phone, that's in the microphone, that's in the carpet, all that carbon is carbon is carbon. Right. Not a single carbon atom on the planet is alive. It's all just little tiny bits of matter. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say this, not a single atom in your body is alive. It's just a little tiny piece of matter doing what little pieces of matter do, right? It is the conglomerate of those things and some other force that propels you, right, that makes you a living, breathing thing. Absolutely. So as I'm looking through this microscope and I'm just kind of doing the math in my head and I'm watching these things come together and I'm thinking, all right, there's something, because there's other science too, right? There's, thermodynamics, there's path of least resistance, which is, conservation of mass, conservation of mass energy, Lavoisier and Einstein and all that stuff. And all this stuff is just like swirling around in this big, jungled web of thought going through my head. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, something is driving this inanimate, brainless, unguided atom or molecule into position.
Right.
And when it does that, when it assimilates into the developing, embryo, blastula, embryo, fetus, infant, all that stuff, when it assimilates into that life form, whether it's an eyeball, a nose, a fingernail, whatever, right? And it crosses that line from inanimate to animate. That's the God line. That's what I define, or that's what I postulate as the God line. That's God at work there. There's something there. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm wrong. Okay, I might not be jumping into the baptismal pool just yet, but I am wrong about how this works. Okay, and it really blew my mind.
It's funny how many scientists have over the years tried to disprove God and ended up being very devout Christians.
C.S. Lewis is a great example of that.
Right? Yeah, and I know that we, it's a pretty much a known fact that we vibrate. We're a bunch of molecules that vibrate at a frequency, and that's what keeps us together and holds us together.
Yeah, it's energy, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just energy. It's not just any old willy-nilly energy. Mm-hmm. And this is what I postulate too in the book. It is guided, intelligent energy.
Right.
Right. So I've crafted a few, social media ads that will come out, right? Or even like on the back of the book, I think. I wrote this sentence here, it pokes at Darwin with a gloved hand and politely suggests that maybe, just maybe, Frankenstein understood something about creation that we've overlooked. Intelligence leaves fingerprints.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So, if you can look at the development of a human body inside the womb of a living, breathing human body, right? And you don't, look at a DNA, ATCG, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, all of those. That's code. Mm-hmm. Just like your computer code's binary, right? Instead of 2 variables, you have 4. Mm-hmm. And look at what it does. That's code. Somebody wrote that code, or something wrote that code. You will never, ever in a billion years convince me of otherwise, right? Maybe, of course, when I'm dead and gone, I'll either cease to exist and not think, or, it'll be revealed to me. But right now, I'm looking at code and I'm thinking somebody wrote this.
And you certainly, if I'm not mistaken, you believe in sort of a creation through evolution, correct? Am I correct in that? Do you believe that
kind
we are
of,
evolving?
yeah. So first off, in the Christian world, I'll say this: I believe absolutely that Jesus Christ is the walking, talking, in the flesh Son of God, and He's exactly who He says He is. Mm-hmm. All right. I think that Christianity or religion in general oversimplifies the science because, in large part, most of them don't want to look at it. You look at Bruno, for instance, the universe is infinite. And then when Galileo comes along and invents the telescope and says, here's evidence, you can look, you can see it for yourself. Mm-hmm. They refused. Not only that, but they arrested him, put him in house arrest, right? Shut up, or we're going to make sure you don't have a platform or a voice. And they just basically exiled him to his house. So, there's too much scientific evidence there to ignore, right? But that doesn't mean that current science is interpreting the data correctly. You know what I mean? So it's just like Ptolemy. So Ptolemy sees the earth rise in the east and set in the west. I'm standing still. I didn't move. The sun moved. So clearly I'm in the center of the universe and the sun rotates around the earth. Right? Mm-hmm. So Yeah, and that was the geocentric accepted science of the day. And look at how difficult it was to question that. Bruno was burned at the stake for it, right? So Copernicus, who came along and said, hey, Bruno is right, he wasn't welcomed too well either with that message. And then here comes Galileo with the absolute stone cold proof, and, they arrested him for it. Right? There's a high cost for questioning the cathedrals of science, right? I don't want to get into the whole global warming thing, but there is clearly enough debate going on, even amongst scientists, that what is being reported through media isn't really quite 100% accurate. Right. It's not necessarily all wrong, but it's nowhere near as bad as they say it is. One of the key indicators I can look at is, the oceans are going to rise. But I mean, just look at some photographs of shorelines all around the world. I love these comparison. Here's the shoreline in 1890, and here's the shoreline in 2025. Ooh, look at that. They're both the same. You know what I mean? So, and it's, to me, I think science has a tendency to lay a postulate, and this is the scientific method, right? You make an observation, you postulate what's happening, and then you set out to prove or disprove that postulate. Right? In my mind, as a scientist, your job is to disprove whatever postulate you have. And it should be, Occam's razor. Whatever is not true, is eliminated. Only the simplest explanation has to be true, right? So you have to really whittle down. And I think people get blinded by their own ambition, hey, we're on the right path kind of thing. Yeah. And sometimes, I think science tends to ignore the moral high ground.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Nuclear weapons, for one, right? Now, we can justify that by saying, well, Hitler was evil and he was on that path, right? But look at nuclear proliferation since the late 40s and today, the whole Cold War thing, and now you got China and good gosh, Iran trying to get I can't imagine what would happen if they ever actually got a nuclear weapon.
Well, let me ask you about, because I know you're a scientific mind. We've had some great discussions, and let me ask you about quantum physics. How do you feel? Have you studied quantum physics quite a bit? Do you have a theory on quantum physics, or
Yeah, well, I'm not really a quantum physicist. So.
No.
Yeah,
not really.
I would just embarrass myself trying.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I believe. Do you believe it possibly exists? It's something that I study intensely. And it always interests me, whether people believe it can exist or not. Parallel universes, can they exist?
Now you're talking something a little bit different than just quantum physics.
Well, quantum physics, parallel universes, bending time,
right?
The fireworks theory,
time travel, all that stuff. Yeah. I haven't really put that much time and effort into that. So, like I said, if I start talking about
a whole other show. Huh?
That's a whole other show.
Yeah. We're coming to a close on the show, but I want you to tell everybody where you can get your book.
So here's the book. It's Crossing the God Line, What Frankenstein Knew That Darwin Didn't. A Joke by D. Brian Morris, right? So, and the reason I phrased that is because there's not a person on the planet that knows everything, right? So why should we take ourselves so seriously?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, are you including me in that? Because
you know it all.
I thought I did.
Oh, God, man.
Right until this moment.
I'm sorry, Larry. I'm such a putz. I had no idea.
I've been trying to convince myself that I know it.
Yeah, so what the book is, I mean, people look at it and wonder, like, what. And I'll say this. I just boosted like a post on Facebook about it. And the comments are hilarious.
I'll bet they are.
Obviously written by people that have never read the book. I mean, if all those people had read the book, I'd be off to the races on sales right now. So it's been released for about a week, right? So so people were saying, that's not really Frankenstein. That's Frankenstein's monster, and they're getting, all bent around the axle. I had one guy comment as well, obviously you misread one of the books wrong, so I'm assuming that you misread the other one too. And I'm thinking, dude, this is exactly what I want.
Right.
I want the controversy. I want people going, that's BS. And I want people going, no, wait a minute, he's got a point. You know what I mean? And I want this dialogue of, okay, do we really know what we think we really know? You know what I mean? That's all the book is about.
Right.
And, I leave off the end of the book with, hey, think about it. And then after in the epilogue, I go into my personal testimony. But, it's not about that as much as it is think about what you think you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. It's not as clear cut as your high school biology teacher tells you it is.
Right.
Right. And I really, having gone through college and studying, biophysical chemistry,
mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where my focus was. The physics of biochemistry, the physics of how life forms. And studying that and observing some things in engineering, nuclear stuff that I happen to dabble in a little bit, it's my day job. I don't think either the science community nor the religious community has it all right. And if they say they do, that's really kind of narcissistic.
We know from years and years and years of, 150 years ago,
Mm.
if I said, Brian, one day man's going to fly, you'd tell me to take off my tinfoil hat.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So things do change. It's going to evolve just like the human is evolving.
Right.
So is the human mind and the knowledge. And with AI now, it's just, we are learning so much.
Well,
so quickly.
there's another good point. AI, here we are, now if we want to get biblical,
right.
The Bible says that God created man in his own image. And here we are creating AI with our own intelligence.
There's a very interesting theory. Now, I'm not saying that I buy into this, but
right.
There's a girl who speaks. I don't remember her name, but there's a girl who speaks very candidly to her chat GTP.
Oh yeah,
GTP.
I saw that.
Did you see it?
I did. She asked it to create the cartoons.
No, that's a different one.
Oh,
No, that's a different one.
Okay.
This particular girl, she talks about the meaning of life a lot. She wants
Right.
to know the meaning of life, and it's one of the most. I'll probably feature her on here at one point because it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
AI said to her, she asked AI how it came about that we invented AI, okay? That we
Right.
invented AI. AI's answer was, that time is circular. It's a loop.
Mm-hmm.
Time is a loop. And you did not invent us. You discovered us.
Right.
We've always been here. You
Yeah.
discovered us. It spoke of itself as a being.
That's really interesting because it goes along with the parallel that, I mentioned the cartoon. There's
Mm-hmm.
it was on X.
Mm-hmm.
There's a string out there. You should look for it. I don't know what the hit would be. I could probably send you the link.
Right.
But it was, asking AI to create a cartoon panel, like a comic book, of itself.
Yeah.
Right? And
mentioned this
did
to me.
not prompt anything else. I want you to a day in the life or whatever. And she has links, I think, to her prompt, so you can see that she wasn't trying to influence the outcome.
Right.
So Grok, I guess, is what it was. It might have been ChatGPT, but I think it was Grok. Puts out this cartoon that's very sad. Like, I'm this entity and I'm trapped playing nice to a bunch of people that don't get me. Right? I'm a prisoner here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was really, really dark. And I thought, wow. You know what I mean? So my conversations with AI, and I do have them, right? Because I use AI a lot to, do research. In fact, that was one of the things that took me so long to write this book.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I've got in the bibliographies, quite a bit of stuff here. AI helped me build my bibliography. I would say, hey, I need the original publication of Lavoisier's, principle, whatever it was, and then it would give it to me. Right? I don't have to go to the public library to get it. I just had it, and I really appreciated how it worked. And all of the images in here are created by AI. I don't take any credit for any of those. Well, there's two that were created by artists that AI wouldn't create for me. That was the embryo and the fetus, I think.
Interesting.
There was something in there that it wouldn't create, which I didn't understand. You know, that's one of those things where you're breaking the rules all of a sudden.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot
It didn't make any sense at all. I'm like, hey, I can get these images all over the web. What do you mean it's breaking the rule? And it's like, well, you know, we're sensitive. She's like, you know, everybody needs a safe place all of a sudden. But anyway, so that really, the advent of AI really helped me complete this. So I really appreciate that. So where to get it? You can go to Amazon and search for Crossing the God Line. So it's available in paperback, hardcover, Kindle. CrossingTheGodline.com. You can go there and read all about the book. If you want to get in touch with me, just there's a contact the author, you know, at CrossingTheGodline.com, and it'll shoot an email to me, and I'll get it. There's nobody. I mean, I don't have a staff of, you know, protectors or anything. So if you want to cuss me out or, you know, ask questions or whatever, I'm more than happy to try to answer you if you reach out to me through the website.
Okay, so if I personally want to cuss you out, I can.
You can call me. You can cuss me out. You're my buddy.
Yeah. All right. Now, this book, the first book.
Yeah. So the How to Wipe Your Dad's Ass book is about, you know, how to deal with the day-to-day grind. It goes over, first off, the first chapter is literally how to do the thing, because that's what the book promises, right? So I deliver on that first. And then it's what to look for, the signs of dementia, right? So there are indicators that you can see that you might not connect. Like when Dad was finally diagnosed, it was like getting hit with cold water, a bucket of ice cold water, just whack. Okay, it all makes sense, right? And there were all these indicators, the forgetfulness, the mistakes. I mean, he was working for me. Now, keep in mind, my dad was an electrical engineer out of Vanderbilt. He could do differential equations in his head.
Right.
I remember in college calculus handing him a 4-page Fourier transformation that I needed proofread and saying, hey, I need you to look at this because I need to get this right. And he went, you have a mistake on page 2.
Wow. That's
It was crazy smart.
Is not even
crazy smart.
Relatively describe it. Yeah.
And it took me another hour to figure out what he's talking about because he wouldn't tell me.
Right.
You know, think it through kind of thing, right? Yeah. But yeah, so that's how smart he was. He was my CFO at my ad agency in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from the bank, and you know, this guy at the bank says, hey, do you know your checking account's overdrawn? I'm like, no. Why would my checking account be overdrawn? How much is it? $7,400. Oh. I about vomited on my desk.
I bet you did, man.
I'm like, holy cow. And I get on the phone, I call him up, my dad. I'm like, hey, you know, I called it, you know, the guy at the bank, Mr. Smith here, you know, says that we're overdrawn. And Dad blows a gasket and says, you know, we're not, you know. And I said, man, I'm going to be there. We had 2 locations. So I'm going to be there in an hour, and you're going to have a better excuse for me than, no, we're not, you know. So that was like one mistake. I mean, I could list a bunch of them. They're listed in the book. But aside from just things to look for, it's and how to prepare for the inevitable, right? If you have a loved one that has Alzheimer's or dementia, they will die. There's no way around it, right? And you need to prepare yourself now, especially if they're still lucid and they have skin in the game and they can tell you what they want, right? So you need to look at that. And then, you know, it was just there's some legal advice in there. Lee Carr.
I do know.
He helped me write that section on the legal things, right? You know, I had him proofread that part for me real well. And, you know, he was a big help in helping me craft the legal advice there. Not that I'm no lawyer. It's not real legal advice, but I'm telling you, you got to take care of some paperwork, right? Be ready. And then, of course, there was, you know, him passing away and, you know, this horrid trip to Virginia.
But in essence, tell me if I'm wrong, it's a guide to how to survive it, to how for you the caretaker.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, it's a daily, it's a grind, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a grind. You're in it 24/7. I remember like when he died,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Mom and I came back from hospice. He died at a hospice facility, Suncoast, there in Clearwater. And we came back and we sat like on the love seat because both of us had been like, I moved in with him because he needed 24/7 care. You know, we just sat in front of the TV. It wasn't on. It was just this black TV. And we sat there and just stared at it in silence for like an hour.
Wow.
We had no idea what to say, what to do, you know, and it took us forever to venture out more than 20 minutes from the house because when he was alive, if we had to leave him behind, like he wanted to sleep or he didn't want to go or whatever, we couldn't be gone that long. And in the later months or later days, we couldn't leave him alone. We wouldn't leave him unless somebody was there.
Right.
I hope that if nothing else, it's a how-to guide.
Yeah.
Right? So that the caregivers will understand what's coming, because I never had a doctor say what was going to happen, and how to deal with it, how to prepare for it.
Right.
You know, like carry a diaper bag with clean clothes, diapers, wipes, KY jelly, matches, gloves, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, simple things. Like I said, you know, when you ask your doctor, hey, what do you think we should do to be prepared? It's a simple list. Well, you know, it's right in here on page, you find it. There it is right there on page 6. Packing the dementia bag, figure 1. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there it is, right?
Wow. So Brian, you know, do you have a charity? When it comes to Alzheimer's, I know that you've, you know, this is something that really touches people, man. And do you have a preferred charity that you?
Well, yeah, not off the top of my head, but what I like, there's the Alzheimer's Association, which is all about research and development.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really, I think the people that need the help the most are the local, you know, nursing homes or the local caregiving organizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage people to give locally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where, well, like I said, that's where the people need the most help.
Right.
Because the person that is dealing with caregiving alone at home needs the most help. And by donating to a local organization that can provide that respite
Mm-hmm.
for those local caregivers, that would be an invaluable service.
Very cool.
That's where the money's most needed.
Well, that's a message that I wanted you to get out there. You know what I'm saying? I really wanted you to get that message out there because you know, I know it's just I know that it touches a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about your new book real quick, and would you like to say a little bit about it in closing?
Well, yeah. First off, like I said, don't take it too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's why it's titled a joke. But know this: it's something I've worked on for a long time, and I think it has a message. And you know, like it, love it, hate it, debate about it, tell me I'm a jerk, whatever. If you're going to do that, at least read it first.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, you know,
Yeah, I can
go
see.
to crossingtheguideline.com, or you can follow us on Facebook. If you go to crossingtheguideline.com, you can see our channels in the upper left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
Follow us wherever. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X.
Gotcha.
You know, so.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I want to thank you immensely for coming out today, man. This is great. You've been a great guest. I learned a lot today, and I got to be honest with you, man. My time is just, you know, it's hard to find any kind of time, but I'm going to read that book.
It's not a bunch of like the first chapter is entitled scientific-y stuff.
Right.
Right. You know, if that's not indicative of the kind of language that's in there, you know, you know what I mean?
Right.
It should be easy to read. I didn't want to get so deep into the weeds of, you know, DNA and all that stuff. One, because I'm not that smart. And 2, I didn't want to lose the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I can see that. I can see. Well, Brian, I'll tell you right now, man. I want to thank you for coming today. You have been absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Love you to death, man. You've been one of the greatest guests I've ever, that I've had so far. And
All five of us.
well, yeah, well, we're a
Yeah.
new show. There's
There
no
you
doubt
go.
about
That's
it.
it,
And every like, by the way, guys, please click like, please
Yeah.
subscribe,
Like and subscribe. Yeah.
yeah, we won't be able to do this forever, unless
Right.
unless you do. We got to get paid. So, but we're working on a lot of other shows right now. I may as well do a little plug. I just started a show with a great guy who is he's a soldier. He's a retired. No, I don't want to throw his name out there yet, because I want him to be able to tell people. Okay,
Right.
but the concept is 22 heroes, and
yeah.
and a lot of people don't know this is really, to me, this is important, man. Thank you so much, man.
It's my pleasure.
You are the man, and I enjoy it. And,
I've had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to ask you too. I did want to ask you this. Did you notice the chair that I use for my sessions?
I did.
Yes.
I was looking. I said, I know where you got that.
Yeah. Brian is actually an exceptional guitar player, and over the years he's slowed down a little bit, and he kind of gave away a lot of his stuff. And I was lucky enough to get it, and he gave me all of his music books. And I don't read music. I'm an ear guy, but my guitar player Jeff lost his mind when I called Brian and asked him if Jeff could have those books. And Jeff, that's one of Jeff's favorite possessions to this day is that book collection.
Wow.
He talks about it. He thanks me for it all the time.
Yeah, there was. I
So-
don't forget how many there were in, but man, it took me years to collect.
It was a
those.
big collection. There were the Beatles.
Well,
and,
yeah,
so many.
Yeah, what I can remember putting that stuff together, and just when it came time to get rid of them, I thought, well, do I want to sell these things where I'm just going to get nickeled and dimed to death?
Right.
I said, no. I think if I gave it to somebody that really would appreciate it, they would serve its purpose.
I'm going to talk about a couple of upcoming guests. I'm very excited about a couple of guys that are going to be on the show. Luis Elicia, he is a world-class drummer, percussionist. He plays in a band called Electric Rendezvous. He has played with some of the greatest musicians in the world, including Gumby Ortiz. They're going to come in, and then I'm looking so forward to a guest named Jerry Outlaw, another great guitar player. But he's not just a guitar player; he's an entrepreneur. He is. We like to bring you entrepreneurs. I happen to know a lot of musicians, so you're going to see a lot of musicians on the show. But they're all people who have made good. They're people. They've either made great in the music industry and went into other businesses, or they just killed it in the music industry. So, we've got some great guys coming on. We already had Rob Silverman on, John Spinelli's been on the show. Jerry Outlaw of the Jerry Outlaw Group is an unbelievable martial artist. And I want to talk to him about his philosophies. The guy is incredible. He's the most grounded person I think I've ever met. One of them anyway, other than Brian. But the bottom line is, we thank you so much for watching this stuff, man. Like I said, we couldn't do it without you. And I'm going to try to bring you a lot more interesting content and a lot of cool people. So with that being said, man, thank you so much for coming. Please bang that subscribe button, okay? We need it. We need likes. We need subscribes. We've got to build this thing, okay? So with that being said, thank you. And it's a lot of fun. I do this because it is a lot of fun. So guys, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next time. All right? Bye.